You ready, Dad? It's recording.
Yeah, pero siempre dice, he always says we need to wait 30 seconds or something.
Okay. How you feeling today?
Better.
Good. Is that like for real better?
Huh?
Is that like for real better, or is that like just Austin Gardner better?
Who knows? Hadn't had time to figure it out.
Huh.
All right. Wes, it's thought we are here with you on the Society of Mentors, and we're glad to have the opportunity to talk to you. 2 weeks from today, I will not be with you unless we can meet one day early. 2 weeks from today, I think it is, I will be I have to be at the hospital at 5:30 a.m. and they will gut me from one side of the body to the other side. And then should be in the hospital about 5 days, and what he said, and then 8 weeks after that, I should be pretty much fully recovered. So it will interrupt a little bit of the schedule, or we may change it just a little bit if that's okay with you guys. So thought I would let you know that right up front. So 2 weeks from today, Lord willing, I will be in the hospital at the time we would be doing this. So maybe we could do it on the day before, which is the day I will be fasting all day long and taking medicine to make me clear out my entire system, which is going to be a wild and crazy day. So anyway,
can you kind of walk us through what happened? So basically we were told that you were, you 15% or less have, they're going to survive after 5 years. And then this, I mean, I don't think people have really heard you talk about kind of the journey from there to where we're at now and what's going on. I think people would probably really enjoy to hear that.
well, it's what happened. Let me see if I can get my TV turned on here. What happened is we found out that there's a small chance that I would be able to survive 5 years or more, and I'm on palliative care. I'm not sure if I would still be considered to be on palliative care. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if they'll still call it that, because the second doctor did tell me that that is called palliative care, but it's not necessarily as bad as they make it sound on the internet. It has more than one part to it. But we got to thinking about it and discussing it as a family, and decided that maybe we ought to ask for a second opinion. My doctor had said, we will do surgery, we won't do surgery, we will do surgery, we won't do surgery. And so very good friends of ours, Robert and Kelly Canfield. Kelly goes to Emory all the time, and they are like the best in the state of Georgia. And she suggested a doctor. And so we went to Dr. Master, Indian from India. And he said, he just looked at all my scans, and he said that he thinks he can get all the tumors and I would be cured. And there's a 50-50 chance it will come back or won't come back. And so anyway, I am now off of the medicines. That's why I feel a little bit better some days. I'm now off the medicine. I've been off the medicine, the cancer meds, for a week. I'm supposed to get an infusion tomorrow. I'm not to get that infusion either. He doesn't want me to have anything else in my body. So for at least 3 weeks. And so it is possible that I would be 100% cured and it might not come back. And it's possible that it will come back. And it's also possible they won't get it all. But right now,
It's
it's
a big deal. It's a big deal and a big change in what we have thought. That's for sure. So that's exciting. So Dad was planned or programmed to go to Peru for pastor school, and he's had to kill that plan because he'll be having surgery, and then it'll be about 8 weeks of recovery. So anyway, I just be praying for him. This is a big deal. What's going on? It's going to be a big deal, him getting his surgery and all that. So just keep him in your prayers and pray for the doctors, and just ask God to do some amazing stuff.
I really appreciate your prayers, and I appreciate those of you that stay in touch with me pretty much. You really make a big difference in my life, and so I really appreciate it. Another bit of good news, exciting news, is we have organized Liberty Baptist Church. Jimmy Sonko's the pastor, and it is doing great. We had 75 Sunday, and
That's their largest attendance yet, isn't it?
that's the largest attendance, and so we are just having a time with it. Zoom isn't working for me, but I'm on YouTube. All right. Well, thank you very much. And anybody wants to get on Zoom or YouTube, we'd be glad to have you. And I want you to feel free to text me any questions or discussion that we might have while we're talking. I did want to go to Peru. Just to be honest with you, that was quite I didn't know if it might be the last day I'd go to Peru. And I really wanted to go to Peru, but this seems to be a good option. So please pray for me, and I'd appreciate it. All right. I wanted to talk to you about church growth and your calendar and your plan and how to go about growing a church. I would love it if you texted questions and asked all along the way. The things I'm going to say to you are going to be extremely simple, things that you have probably already heard or thought about. So I'm going to say those to you, and I welcome all questions. If you send it through Zoom or YouTube, I won't get it unless one of the guys remind me, but they might. And but if you text me personally, I can take care of that. First thing I want to say to you, if you're trying to start a church or you're doing church work on the mission field, go fishing in the ocean and not in an aquarium. Too much of what we call church planting is church swapping. We go to the mission field and we find disgruntled church people. The people that caused me the most trouble in America weren't people that got saved and excited about Jesus. They're the people that came from other churches and already know everything. The people in Peru that caused me the most trouble were the people that came from other churches. And so I'd just like to make a few statements, and then I'll stop here and let Chris jump in and discuss this. I used to keep aquariums. Before Chris was born, I had, I think, 7 aquariums in my house. My wife could tell you for sure how many there were. One was my largest was a 29-gallon. And then I had 20 gallons and 15s and 10s and 5s. And I had them all over the house. And back then, Betty would let me do that kind of thing. You know, I've since lost, I don't hardly even have control of my office. But back
Not
then,
even remote control.
back then, that is true. Even that, I was watching a History Channel thing about the men that built America, and she said, "I guess you really like history, don't you?" And so I was like, "Okay, let me change it to something else." I loved the aquariums, and so people are always getting rid of their fish. Like people get into aquariums and get out of aquariums, and so that's where I got the aquariums free. I think I may have bought the first one, at 29-gallon one. Once I showed interest in aquariums, people were calling up and saying, "Hey, you want an aquarium?" Sure. So I was buying filters. I was a regular at the pet store. And, you know, you bring the fish in a plastic bag. And they got water from the other aquarium where they came from. And you set that in your water and you let it get climatized so that it gets to be the same temperature. Then you open it and let the fish out. And you just hope and pray that they won't bring in disease, or they won't the water you brought from the other tank doesn't bring in disease. And so I kept guppies in one tank and an Oscar in another tank, and I'd get the guppies and feed them to the Oscar, and I had a lot of things. So I just wrote down several little things real quickly about the aquarium, and then I just want to go talk to you about churches. Don't get your fish from an aquarium. Don't go there. Go out in the wild and catch your own fish. If you get fish from an aquarium, they come with expectations. They're used to a certain alkaline acid amount in the water. They are used to pH levels, in other words. And when you introduce new fish into an aquarium, they affect all the fish in the aquarium. Let me just change the churches right quick. You go to the mission field, and rarely do you go to a place where there are already Christians. It's like, I'm going to go where no one has gone before. And as soon as you get there, the Pentecostals are ruling and reigning over the roost. And I mean, you've even got Seventh-day Adventists, and you've got Mormons, and you've got Jehovah's Witnesses, and always Pentecostals. I even see Pentecostal churches that I used to see in Peru. I see them here, the exact name, and it's a Spanish church. And so you bring in a guy like I allowed some people to come in from the Iglesia Evangelica Peruana, Peruvian Evangelical Church. They always cause trouble with their attitudes and what they thought they wanted to do. You let somebody come in from a Pentecostal church, they tell you what to do, and somewhere along the way, you start letting the fish dictate to you how to operate the aquarium, and because you're so happy to have people that you acclimate to them instead of having them acclimate to you, and it starts to cause massive trouble in church growth. Because if you were getting lost people, if you were getting fish from the ocean, then you would train them. They would do it your way, and they would think what you want to think. And so I want to tell you that you are making a big mistake. I had people join the church in Hunter. One guy came to me. He is one of the richest guys there. He came to me and he said, I like what you're trying to get going here, but this is pitiful little nothing. And I said, that's all right, don't worry about it. And like you, I wanted him to come. Well, later on, once the church grew, he did come, but he waited until we were running 100, 150, and he brought in money. That was exciting. But you understand, lost people bring no real expectations. Mm-hmm. And you are listening to, you're letting Pentecostals or Peruvian Evangelical Church or Presbyterians or Southern Baptists or other independent Baptists drive your church. That is a massive mistake. It will hinder your growth, and they will twist, and ruin your view, because they'll tell you things about culture that aren't true because they come out of a subculture. Okay, Chris, you can jump in there, and I'll come back on some of that.
Yeah, I understand where they're coming from. When you first started church, man, you want people so bad. You want people to come to church so bad. And when you're starting, it's like, hey, I got my family and one other person, two other people. And so it's hard to keep your focus on the right thing. The business that I run as a financial advisor, I tell them that when I first started, the kind of client that I wanted, you could test and see if you would be the perfect client with what I call the 2-finger test. You take these 2 fingers and you put them right here and you feel thump, thump. They're a good client. And what I found in my business is that accepting a lot of those clients has caused me a lot of headache. So this is a business principle as much as it is a church planning principle. Make sure you're going after your ideal client. Who is your ideal client? Your ideal client does not know Jesus as a savior. When you bring that person in, they have no earthly idea what to expect. They have no expectations. No, this is what has to happen. That's not what happens with them. So because of that, keep your focus on the right thing. In the long run, that will pay off. I'm now in a position to where I'm like, okay, I need to get rid of clients, not get new clients. And there are a lot of these clients that I at first accepted. And here, the rule in my business is your book is only as strong as your weakest client. Your book is only as strong as your weakest client. People can do complaints against a financial advisor, do all kinds of stuff to mess them up. And they tell you your book is only as strong as your weakest client. Well, guess what? It's the same in the church, because what will happen is you bring a guy in with a biblical background, or he's a hyper Calvinist, or he's got these agendas that he wants to drive. Your church will only be as strong as your weakest member. And we're not talking about their weakness and maturity in the faith, but we're talking about the wrong person can explode your church. I'm talking about that can really hurt your church, because behind the scenes, they're talking behind the scenes, they're doing all this kind of stuff behind the scenes. So just be careful, keep your focus on the right thing. There is a thirst and a desire to have a church plant succeed. And so we pretty much believe that anybody that passes a 2-finger test is good enough, but keep your focus right. And it will pay off in the long run. And you don't know that right now, but it will pay off in the long run. Your shortcuts are usually bad decisions. So you have somebody, you're like, well, man, he already dresses right, reads a Bible, knows a lot. I can start from a whole different spot with this guy. And that shortcut is going to cost you in the long run. It's going to cost you more money, going to cost you more time. It's going to cost you time to build your church. So just know that and approach it accordingly. And you can either live out that truth, which is the temptation. You'll live out that truth, or you can listen to some more experience of people who have done it and go, let me live through their mistakes, because I don't know, my dad may not have ever made a mistake with that, but man, I have made so many mistakes with that. So
let me just give you 3 things I quickly thought about that people that come from the other aquarium say to you. First off, you weren't called to be a keeper of the aquarium. You were called to be a fisher of men. And so a fisher of men, if you get a Pharisee to join your church, you got real problems. Fact is, in the Bible, in the New Testament church, Paul ends up basically having to make a complete break with everything in Jerusalem. Though he tries to be as friendly as he can, he has to go up there in Acts 15 have a fight with them, because they will not leave it alone. They continually badger him all over. They're Judaizers, and you know all of this, and they're constantly coming and trying to tell him how to do a church. And they're trying to bring in Jewish rules for Gentile believers. And Paul's like, get away from here. What are you doing? I don't need to hear this. This is not what we do. I don't want to hear anything about it. And so in the same way, you got Pentecostal believers bringing in Pentecostal beliefs. And so I wrote down here 3 things I thought of that I have watched because of my mistakes. And one of them is, they say, don't talk about money. All the Pentecostals talk about is money. And so what you've got in your church is you got a Pentecostal who didn't like giving in his real church where he really has his heart. He didn't like giving over there. And now he's in your church and telling you can't talk about giving. And so next thing you know, you're so timid about teaching people to give that your church will squander the riches God gave it, and you'll lose. Another one is, the music has to be this way. This is how the music has to be. And so they come in with this different opinion, and they want to argue about doctrine. They want to question. In Arequipa, the beautiful thing was, I would say to them, this is what the Bible teaches. And they would look at me and say, well, where does it teach at? And I'd show them in the Bible, and they go, oh. And we go through it, and they go, oh. And I didn't have any argument or any discussion. They were just like, wow, that's what the Bible says. The fact is, when I said something new, they'd say, where does it say that? And more than one time, I was wrong. I told them that when Stephen died, Jesus stood at the right hand of the Father. And in the Spanish Bible, he doesn't say he stood. And they said, where does it say that? And I said, it's right here in the Bible. Okay. And so then I realized I shouldn't have said that. But they were Bible people. And what you're getting are people that come in with the other attitude. It also reminds me of the attitude of Korah. They come from the other church, and they were already recognized in the other church. But you know what? If they're church hoppers, if they're running from one place to the other, are they really the best ideal for you? If they quit going to church at the other church and started going to church at your church, did they come in as a clean slate to let you teach them, or are they there to argue with you? It is the same problem we face with YouTube today. YouTube has become the discipling machine of the Calvinists and the Pentecostals. And so I would just say to you, and this is all I want to say about it. Unless you ask a question or Chris brings up more, I won't badger you on this, but stop shopping at the aquarium store. Stop shopping at the aquarium store. That means don't make up invitations that appeal to other church people. That makes me think of one thing here right quick. We had a brother who does church planting in America who's now in heaven at the church I pastored before at Vision. And he was there and he was preaching, and I had some pastors from Florida, a pastor or two from Florida had come up. And basically, they came to me and they were angry in the break. They said, this guy's not talking about church planting. They said, he's saying if they don't have Sunday night service, if they're not playing the music like we used to play it, then let's tell them to come to our church. And I said, that is what he's saying. He said, there's a lot of people that want to go to church like they used to go to church. They want to go to Sunday night service and they want to go to midweek service, and they want the old hymns and they don't want the new music. And I actually told people in that whole board about that. I just want you to realize we're not advertising to get people that quit another church or don't like another church. We're trying to get lost people saved. And to get lost people saved, it totally affects everything else I want to say about your calendar and about your outreach. It totally affects everything about your calendar and about your outreach. And so I don't know if you're aggravated at me or where you are right now, but please quit going to the aquarium store. Chris?
Yeah. And I would say that my temptation, if I were to hear this class before a lot of the stuff happened to me, or this time, the Society of Mentors, is that I would have thought, yeah, but mine's different. Let me explain how mine's different. And what ends up happening is, on the long haul, you find out that it wasn't different at all, And so like I said, you can trust other people who have fallen flat on their face doing this kind of stuff. Or you can fall flat on your face, or you can just decide, hey, let me just start differently. So just focus on the right things. It's going to matter. And for a year, everything might go great. And then for the second year, it might go great. I could give you names, churches, locations, zip codes for you to go, for you to show you what we're talking about. Just be careful. It's going to, it's one thing to get hurt. It's another thing to put yourself in a position on purpose. It's going to allow the church to be hurt and the cause of Christ to be hurt. So just be careful with that. And I would say that one of the most dangerous groups of people for that are hyper-Calvinist, because they don't think that the Bible says anything except for Calvinism. Like they think that every verse has to do with predestination. They think that every verse has to do with, and so you'll bring them in thinking you can change them, or you'll bring them in and they, they have one agenda and one agenda only. And so just be careful. And Pentecostals do the same thing. But just be very, very careful. I'd ask you to consider letting us make the mistake for you instead of you making your own.
Somebody just texted me and said this is very helpful, and they really appreciate it. And so I thank you for that. I just want you to know that I don't want to be ugly. I mean, I've gotten in plenty of trouble for that, but so in your mind, put some grace with this. Most of our churches in America don't see very many people get saved because we don't attract lost people. We don't bring in the wicked, the lost. We bring in church hoppers. And for South County, among older pastors years ago, they told me the people in this church used to be in this church, all of them together, and then they used to be in this church all together. And they've gone from this church to this church to this church. And everybody, and they're from different churches. And those are the ones that cause you the most problems. Those are the ones that cause you the most problems. So that is now going to affect how we do our outreach. So let me just throw this at you. The first thing you want to do is look for some young men. Okay, the first thing you want to do is look for some young men. You can do that by going out on visitation and finding them and chewing the fat with them and talking to them. You can do that by the mass outreach that we'll do in a minute to get people to come into church, and you start spotting the people in the room. You can do that. You can do that down at the local store or kiosk. You can do that down at the concha or the court where they play ball. You can start meeting people, but we're looking for young men that we can actively train to be in the ministry. And what we want to do here, is we want to train men to be in the ministry, and that's our whole goal. Okay, I'm going to talk to you a lot about mass outreach, but I want, day one, I am trying to train young people to be in the ministry, because I only continue to exist by training young people. Jesus left disciples that continued after he was gone. Paul left disciples that continued after he was gone. I got cancer right now. I could die, but my children will live on, and my grandchildren will live on, and people I've trained in the ministry will live on. And so the goal will be to find young men. So once you have found those first young men, you spend a lot of your week training those young men. You want to spend time to train them. You want to practice the service with them. You want to run the plays before the big game on the weekend. So like, you just practice and practice and practice. So when you come to game time, they have practiced it so well that it is part of their nature to be able to do that. So I'm going to get to the calendar in just a second, but I just want to remind you that you're not trying to gather a crowd. Jesus didn't do it that way. We know of several major crowds that he drew. The Sermon on the Mount, 4,000 men, 5,000 men, but mostly in the 3.5 years of his ministry, his time was spent with those 12 men. Now, they all went out doing ministry all together. They all went out and did some preaching together, some healing together, praying together. But his goal was to train those men. They were young men. They were teenagers, actually. He was training them to do the ministry. And so I want to remind you of that. I want to remind you that that's your primary goal, is to find and train young people. Reproduce yourself. I'll let Chris jump in there, and then I will follow up now to tell you step by step maybe how to get there.
Yes, that was my question. So, Dad, what would you say would be your you land in the middle of nowhere, which, it's been a long time since you've been in that kind of a position because of, how God's blessed you and what you've done. But if you land tomorrow in the middle of Paraguay, and in Paraguay, you're sitting there, you're going to start, what would your first, after the last pictures hung, the house is set up, the language, you're in Paraguay, where would you, give me some ideas of where you would start? Day one, you're sitting there and you go, how do I find people?
I'd give me a handful of gospel tracts, so a bunch of them. I'd take my vehicle and I'd drive somewhere, and then I would get out and walk. I'd walk through the market and I'd meet as many people in the market as I could. I'd tell them who I was. I'd give them a gospel tract. I would go down to the place where they're playing sports, and I'd see if I couldn't meet those young people down there. I would, the first week you won't meet anybody. They'll say hi to you, but you won't know them. But the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, eighth, 10th week that you're out there, people start realizing this guy's out here all the time. And so somebody speaks to you. Some young kid starts following you around. He's 15, he's 18, and he's like, who's this American? What's he doing? And he wants to practice English, and he's over here talking to me or whatever. And I am asking him if he would be willing to meet with me on Friday night to just chew the fat. He could help me with my Spanish, and I would talk to him about the things of the Bible. And so that's one of the main things I'm doing is I'm out looking for young men. One missionary did it by playing basketball. And John Walls was on here and gave us one of our classes. and he played basketball. And if you ever look at his ministry, he had a whole bunch of young men, and that's how he's got all those churches going. So that's my goal. Go find those young men. So that'd be the main thing, except for what we're going to talk about. I am never going to have in my mind, I need a big crowd on Sunday. I'm going to have in my mind, I need some young men to train. Now, there'll be plenty of, I'm going to explain all of that to you, but I need young men to train, because without training young men, if I'm a missionary, and if I got 4 years before I leave to go back to America, if I get a crowd for 3 years, that last year I'm scurrying around looking for somebody to take my place while I go home on furlough. No, I'm looking for somebody day one. It may take me to year 2 or 3 to find them, but it won't be because I'm not looking as hard as I can. I'm gonna be looking for those guys somewhere between 15 and 25, or 18 and 28. I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of them. Chris?
Yeah, and I would say that part of that is making sure that you're in the right place when that you're in the right place in the aspiring class. We've discussed that in the past. Can you talk a little bit about that while I turn around and try and mute my phone?
Okay, so here's the deal. We have discussed this in the past, and I think that maybe it's hard to get a hold of in your mind, but so if you take all the people and you divide them into the 3 major classes, we have lower class down here, and those are people that make less than these people. They make less money than everybody else. And then you have the middle class, and then you have the upper class. And so these things, everybody knows these things. So you got all those. Well, down here, and each class is divided again. So you got lower, middle lower, and upper lower. And so I'm not going to keep belaboring that, but I would tell you to go for lower middle class to upper lower class. Lower middle class to upper middle class. And so lower middle class, upper lower class, lower middle class. And so what you're doing is you're getting people, if you could figure in your mind, write down 9 letters. 9 are the uber rich, and 1 are the uber poor. Well, the uber rich, I just read in my devotions yesterday, they were out soul winning, and they were walking up to a very rich man's house who had big pane windows that they could see through. And the guy was sitting in his easy chair watching television. And he turned to the pastor and he said, "What can we offer a man that has all this?" And the pastor had to say to him, "Money's not what we go for, it's souls." But the truth is that man will have a hard time accepting Christ, and you and I both know it. And that guy in level number 1, he's so lazy, he won't work. He is always going to be on the take. He's always going to be on welfare. He doesn't have any desire to do better. Level 2 is getting a little bit better, but level 3 is the highest level of the low class. And that guy's like, I want to get out of here. I want to be number 4 or 5. And number 4 is like, I want to be 5 or 6. And so they're young people. They're not lazy. They're not bums. They're somebody you can probably work with and help challenge them to want to do something for God. Now, Brother Ricky, you just asked me if you should already be out, and I would say yes. I would not need a place to meet. If I were you, I had a way to find some young people and take them to, and I'm talking about 18, 20-year-old kid, and get 2 or 3 of them, and you can meet at, you could actually just tell them, hey, I want to discuss what it's like to live in Utah. I want to discuss life here. I want you to help me get oriented. And you go find some of those people, and then of course you keep bringing up Jesus all the time. And if somebody happens to get saved before you get a place where we'll meet anywhere, you can. I know we don't meet under trees too much, but you can meet under a tree. You can meet in a McDonald's. You can meet at a Starbucks. You can do whatever it takes. But I'd be praying now. And just let me throw this at you. I would already have a business card that would go to my webpage. I would have a business card that goes to my webpage. I'd have a webpage that has everything but the church address. Everything but the church address. You say, well, what if we change the church name? Well, first off, if you don't get people out of another aquarium, they're not going to argue with you that much about the church name. But if they did, in the day and time you live, it is not that big a deal to change your church name. So you change your name, but you get a business card now, and everybody you meet, you say, man, I'm so glad to meet you. My name's Austin Gardner. Here's my card. You can click on that link right there, and it'll take you to some information about the church we're starting. When you're at the restaurant, you write a note on it and say, please click on this website. If you ever have a problem, give me a call. And so everywhere you go, get you a gospel tract, and it has no address on it, but it has a link to a web page, maybe a Facebook page, maybe a web page, but definitely a web page. And you start promoting that. So everywhere you go, they're hearing about you. And then when you get ready to start, now it's not my stripe and all that, but Rick Warren, when he arrived in Saddleback community in California 40, 50 years ago, when he started that church, he told the real estate man, I'm going to start a church here. And you know what? The real estate man became one of his first members. And so I would just, it don't matter. You talk to them, 99% of the people are not going to be interested, but there's always that one. So put all the hooks in the water you can at all the time you want. I've been talking a long time there. Chris, you got any comment real quick?
Yeah, so I would say that people are always looking for the magic bullet, and the answer is all of those things. And so when you first start, you've got to do everything you can to reach anybody, to tell them about what you're doing, to tell them about starting the church. You've got to share it all the time. People only change the direction of their life because there's a problem they can't solve or a process they don't like. And so you need to find out what that problem is. You need to find out what that process is. So when they're talking to you and they're going, hey, life is just very, very difficult. You go, yeah. And I work with people all the time that have very difficult times in life. Let me tell you what I do to help them. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, Jesus is the answer. That's the whole, when you start doing that, hey, my finances are messed up. I really wish I had somebody that could tell me how to fix my finances. Well, you know what? The probably what makes me successful financially is not really the fact that I have money. It's the fact that I have placed my budget on with Jesus. Jesus is the center of everything I do. Do you realize that you can help a broke man become wealthy just by changing his lifestyle and following Jesus and what he does? Like, they need to understand that the answer to the problem can be found as you listen, and listen well. There's 7 levels of listening. Listen to understand and make sure that you're paying attention to what's going on. As you do that, just make sure that you are explaining that Jesus is the answer. There's no other answer. America's not better. Peru's not better. Jesus is the answer. That needs to be the constant drumbeat that you have. I hand out probably more business cards from my business than any other person in our region does. Why? Because of the same thing. You've got to always be putting your stuff out there. Do the same thing. Be talking about what you do. And what's the problem they can't solve? What's the process they don't like? What keeps them up at night? And what makes it where you can't sleep at night? What concerns do you have? Well, my kids. Well, you do know that if the Bible teaches us how to raise kids. And that's one of the things I do. I specialize in teaching people how to raise kids. So every time there's a problem, you come back to the same solution. The same solution is the Word of God, Jesus. Do you know him? And you'd be surprised at how many people you will connect with that way.
And you could get Bible studies going with people already. You could get communication going right now, so that whenever you're ready to start your church, you'd already have people very interested in doing what you're doing. Let me tell you something about what Chris is doing, which is a little over the top, but I would say that it's the kind of over the top you want to be. So we're out to eat at a restaurant, and his chair bumps the chair of the person behind him, and then he turns around and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And he starts talking, and the next thing you know, he's giving them a business card and telling them he'd love to get together with them sometime and talk. And so I'm just saying to you, I tell every missionary before they ever land on the field, have a business card. On the business card, it's got your name, the name of the ministry. And if you want to change the name of the ministry later, you can always change it. The name, the phone number, the web page, your name, phone number, web page. Your name, phone number, webpage. That's all you really need. And then And I love what Chris just said. Did you hear that? Man, you sure have very well-mannered children. Don't ever go, yeah, we're good parents. Say, hey, I appreciate you noticing. That is an intentional thing, because what we've done is study what the Word of God has to say about that. And we've tried to apply that in our family. I'd love to get together with you sometime and discuss that.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. So I had tea at a lady's house where she brought about 4 of her friends that were all 70-year-old friends that have money, because of doing this kind of thing. One of the things I would say is this: when they talk to you about raising kids, you need to say to them, you go, man, you know what? I have actually been thinking about doing that, because that's one of the things I love doing, is getting together with families and talking to them about how to raise children. So what I would love to do, I don't like doing it I like doing it if somebody can have 2 or 3 families together, because I need to make sure that I'm that I'm spending my time wisely. But 2 or 3 other families that are dealing with kid issues that they might want to, and like, you're the answer to the problem, and they think you are the answer to the problem, but then you tell them Jesus. So, hey, I'm having problems with my money. I don't know what to do with my money. And man, I know Americans are rich. Well, as a business owner, one of the things I love doing, I love sitting down with people and explaining to them how to have success financially and what the keys to success financially are. I don't know if you know of any other business owners, but if you did, I would love to sit down and we'll do a 6-week meeting on on how to have success financially. And they just don't know the textbook is going to be the Bible. And so guess what? They get in there and you go, if you want to know what's made me successful financially, here's what's made me successful financially. This is the Word of God. Let's talk about what the Bible says about this. And, there's no greater love than this, that a man give his life for his friends. You have to you have the right kind of partners. Well, the first partnership that mattered to me was the fact that if I knew that I needed someone that was willing to give his life for me, and that I was willing to give my life for him. And what I found as I dove into that was Jesus Christ died, gave his life on the cross of Calvary, and that became the foundation upon which I built my financial success. So those, be open to those kind of things.
Let me just say this. If I were you, I'd get a web page and I would write an article of at least 300 words every day. And I would, and by the way, if you're with this, I do that. I put out way more than that on purpose. That gets your listing up. Did you know in the Middle East or in the Muslim countries, many of the people have come to Christ because they wanted to know about God, and they went on the internet and did a search. So if in your community, if you started working hard at writing, you could write articles on what does the Bible say about overcoming alcoholism. Now, don't be the Facebook guy that's trying to be ugly. Be the positive guy that's trying to help. How can you have victory? How can you raise your children? How can you manage your finances? How can you work in your family? And tell stories and just 300 words, just 300 words. And if you do that every day, slowly your web page will creep up and get to Google's first page. And when people start looking around and saying, I'm looking for a church, they're going to hit on your church and they're going to be like, I'm going to look at that place right there. And I know you could say, well, overseas, that people don't use the internet. And I know Facebook is going away. You can say anything you want to say, but I would stir every pot I could stir to get as many people as I could. So I'm going to give out gospel tracts everywhere I go. Don't leave a restaurant without a gospel tract and a business card that has links to your material, to your place on the website. When you're talking to somebody and they say, I'm having trouble with my family, then all you got to do is hand them the card and say, if you'll go to this website, and there's a lupa, I don't know how to say it, a magnifying glass, which is a search place. And you just put in there children, it'll take you to all the articles I've written on children. And maybe after you read those, you'd like to get together with me and we could discuss how to raise children. So what we're doing is we're working at getting to people with their needs. We're not trying to get them to help us start a church. That's a big deal. See, if I need you to help me, you probably won't. But if you need me to help you, you'll be glad to use me. Everybody likes to use you. people don't love you for who you are as much as they use you for what they can get. Well, that's the whole basis of service, isn't it? I mean, you're like the waitress that keeps your glass full of Diet Coke. And so why? She's meeting your need. So you want to go and you want to meet needs while you're doing it. Chris?
Yeah, so what Dad just did is he gave you a list of problems. He literally said, here's the problem, this, the kids, the alcohol, the what, and every country will be different. Drugs, but every country is going to be different. You want to learn what the problems are when you're in a taxi and they're talking about whatever they're talking about, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's a problem. How do you beat corruption? Peru corruption would be a big one. How can we do anything with corruption? So you listen to them and you go, oh, there's a problem. As soon as you pinpoint that problem, you can explain to them you are the solution to that problem. And it's not that you are the solution to that problem, but if they'll come to you, you have knowledge from the Word of God that is, that will answer the problem of these issues that come up. So pinpoint the problems, write the problems down, and then talk about those problems. And I'm telling you, people are more than happy. My family's dealing with a few things right now that we've not dealt with before. And as it's happening, there's 2 or 3 other if you were to tell me, Chris, I could go to your house and teach you this. But I need 2 or 3 families to do that. I have 2 or 3 families right now because people's problems bond them together. And so as you hear that problem, you literally go, hey, I'd love to go to your house. I usually do 1 or 2 of these meetings in different houses a week. And I would commit to going for 6 weeks to your house. It's not forever. They're not committing to, 6, 9, 10, whatever amount of weeks are. And I will deal with this. But I'd like for there to be more than just one family talking. Because you have to understand a problem. You need more perspective on the problem than what you can just give. So it's great to have other people in the room when this happens. As you do that, people are going to say, man, I'd love to do that. And so and the key is this: you never talk down to them. You don't know more than them. You are not better than them. You know the one that knows better than them. You know the one. So you make sure that they understand that you're there on their side and you're helping them. So.
Okay, I wanted to reiterate, you should get a webpage as soon as you're able to speak the language, and you should regularly post material. Look, you complain about the groups that you don't like having material out there, but you're not putting up material. And you should get material up there as best you can. It's best to put up something every day than it is a whole bunch at one time. You might consider getting a YouTube channel and doing a 15 or 20 minutes talk, preaching, teaching on these different subjects. And you can even put that on your card. I have dealt with that. If you go to my YouTube or to this, you can find those. And so you want to get the material out there. That's what I would say. Now, because of time and we're on point number 2 of my 12 points for today, let me just say this. Every church service you ever do is geared strictly for adults and families. So church services, Sunday morning, Sunday night, midweek, adults and families. I'm spending my time with the young people, but I am not going to let that dominate my church service, because I'm going to have my young people bringing people. They're going to bring their mama and their daddy and their aunt and their uncle and their brother and their sister. They're going to win their entire family to Christ. And so when they come, I'm going to be preaching the gospel to them. And so I want you to work with these young people. Now, every good church is full of people that are kin to each other. Now think on that a second. One apostle goes and gets his brother, right? So what happens is, if the word changed me, I want my wife to know. If the word changed me, I want my children to know. If the word changed me. And so churches are like, that's why, and we hate that about churches. But the gospel, once it gets in a family, it'll just run that family. All you got to do is keep making sure you got bunches of families, so that it's not one family, but it's 20 families. And if you got 5 families out of 20 big family stems with 5 families out of, that's 100 families. And so all church services are to be geared to adults people. You can do Sunday school differently. You can do youth meeting differently, but do a general audience appeal during preaching. Chris, I don't want to leave you out. You want to say something right there?
No, I think that's great. I'm listening. I'm taking notes.
Okay. So I want to talk to you about promoting people to come to church. Too many of you guys, I love you, but too many of you guys quit way too quick. How many people do you need in church before you stop knocking doors? All of them. All of them. And so it should be that your community is on a consistent and regular basis of hearing from you and hearing from your church. And so let me just talk to you real quickly. There are two kinds of promotion that I like to put in my ministry. One is promotion I do with the young guys I'm training. And so that would be, if you guys bring visitors, I will give you prize A. So I set up a thing and I say, I'll give you a brand new Bible. I'm going to get you a computer program, or I'm going to get you some commentaries or whatever I'm going to do. And I set that up with them. And so as they bring in visitors, I help them progress in the ministry, even down to clothing or shoes or whatever it might help them. I'm going to work at doing that. But that's private. That's over here on the side, and we never discuss that in front of anybody. No one knows about that. But every preacher should plow in hope. He should know, if I work, I will enjoy the benefits of my work. That's what 1 Corinthians 9 says. And so I'm going to teach that young preacher, if you know how to get people in church, I'm going to reward that. Then I'm going to have other promotion where I promote for families and people to come. So you need to set up, I'll make you mad, but if you're not giving out, if you are not giving out a minimum of 10 to 20,000 invitations a month, you're not doing your job. 10 to 20,000 invitations a month. You can do it all kinds of ways. By the way, in Peru, when I was getting all the churches going, we averaged 10,000 a week. Now, I couldn't do that by myself, but you realize that if you have 50 people, giving out, I think, what is that, 200? If you have 50 people that give out 200 pieces of information, that's 10,000. Do you know how long it takes to give out 200 pieces of information in Peru? We used to just go out and everybody in the community would be like, I've already got one in a piece of paper. Oh, it's a different one. Got a new one this week. And so you want to invite. I think one of the big mistakes you're making is you think that, well, we've already invited a bunch of people. If their church is in the shadow, if their house is in the shadow of your church, they need to hear about you all the time. Every house, there should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 13 houses within your church's reach. That would put you at about 50,000 people. If there are 10,000 houses, I'm going to say, let's put it at 10,000 houses inside your area of reach. And I know this doesn't work in China or any closed countries, but I'm primarily talking to others. But let's say that that's 15,000. I'm going to put that at 30,000. That's 30,000 because I want to hit every house at least twice a year. And I divide that by 52. That means every week I've got to give out 576 invitations. You ought to have them organized so that everybody in the community is constantly hearing from you. One time you could just toss it into their yard or stick it under their door, or another time you can go to the market and you can just go through the market and blast everybody in the market with a track. Here's a track, here's a track, here's a track, here's a track, here's a track. But you want it so that everybody in the community, when they see y'all coming, they're like, oh boy, here they come. And it needs to be 13,000 houses. See, 4 times 13 is 52. That's 50,000 people. And if you'll work at doing that, I promise you, your church will grow. Your church doesn't grow because you don't get the word out very much. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to be ugly. You just don't get the word. You're not giving out a gospel tract everywhere you go in the community. You're not giving out a business card everywhere you go. You expect to put up a sign that says all welcome, and they should just show up. But we're to go and to meet them and talk to them and get them in church. Chris?
Yeah, that's, and the responses you're gonna get, man, some of the stuff we had said to us about our, about the tracks in Peru. And they're like, man, I'm sick and tired of this. Oh, at least I got toilet paper now. Like we were known as the people that was always doing this. And that, you can't discontinue doing things like passing out tracts. If you do, this is all around. Like I am now very successful at my job. I still pass out business cards like crazy. Still pass them out like crazy.
How many business cards do you go through in a month, do you think?
I go through 1,000 business cards a quarter is basically what I end up going through.
So that's over 300 cards, and those are all individual touches.
Individual touches. Because it matters. Here's okay. So let's talk my business world. I've been in business long enough now to where people go, I got a call just the other day. Hey, I know you probably don't remember me, but I have, there was somebody that in my family whose parents just died and they don't know what to do with their money. And I remembered I got this business card from you. Is that something you can help people with? And I'm like, yeah, I can. I was driving into our neighborhood last week. I've got 2 accounts now open because of this, but 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks, maybe 3. I was driving in our neighborhood. There were 2 kids on the side that were selling garbage from their house, but they were trying to, and I stopped. I bought a Hungry Hippo for $1.75. I gave them the money. And I said, now here's the deal, guys. Somebody with your kind of get up and go, I can tell you this, you're going to make it places in this world. And when you do, you're going to need a financial advisor. So, hey, keep this card. You're going to need it. They put it up on Nextdoor. On Nextdoor, they ended up sending it out and so that the neighborhood could see it and the neighbors call us. I had no idea that was going to happen, but you've always got to understand that you plant seeds knowing that one day something will happen from it.
What was funny about that one was he gave that to these little kids, and it wasn't even their neighborhood. And they were with their grandparents, and their grandparents were extremely impressed because Chris told them, you guys are entrepreneurs. They ran in the house and told their granddaddy, that guy says we're entrepreneurs. And so you don't know. And so the question came in.
So your business card, somebody has a problem with their family member or somebody's dealing with them and you've told them that you deal with this. What's going to happen is they're going to be dealing with their family. They're going to have their family member. Somebody's going to say, well, we're trying to fix this, but this is a problem. And I don't know. And he goes, you know what? There was that weird American over there. He gave me a card and he said that's what he did. So, and it may be 5 years later, but it doesn't matter. You're in for the long haul anyway.
Do we give out the same invitations to the same houses in the range of our church every week? First off, you're not going to be able to hit all the houses. So you got a map and you say, this week we covered these 10 blocks, 15 blocks. Next week we cover these 10, 15 blocks. Next week we cover these 10 or 15 blocks. And you want to go out to where you are getting 1 kilometer from your church. And then as soon as you get all those covered, you come back and you do them all again. Again, I'm not even wanting you to knock on the door and ask them if they'll come out. I am not wanting you to knock on the door and ask them to come out and have a long conversation. And so if you see somebody, get their info. So you want to get a WhatsApp group started. I'm not anywhere near going to get through what we have, but you want to get a WhatsApp group. And so when you're talking to people, and you could even set up. I think Chris has given us a great idea. You could set up I have a little WhatsApp group where I talk about family issues, and I just send out little WhatsApp notices with stuff, and it'll give you a link to the webpage where I post something, and you could start you a WhatsApp group for a family problem or financial problem or whatever that you run into. They don't know who's on your on your WhatsApp group. If it's only them, that's fine. But you want another WhatsApp group to everybody who's interested, so that anytime you're having a big day, you can hit WhatsApp and hit everybody in that community. And so, yes, I would give out the same information to everybody, but you got to be organized about it. If you plow, if all you do is hit the same 5 blocks every week, you're not going to get the job done. You need to be hitting about 50 blocks. You need to be hitting about 50,000 people. Figure out how many that takes to get you that many people. If not, figure out, go 1 kilometer out. Now, by the way, I'm asking you not to try to get the guy who's coming from 3 kilometers away. You know why? He's only going to come because he's from another cult or another group. So I'm wanting you to go meet fresh people. I want to challenge you to walk and take people with you and walk. So if you put 2 or 4 people, 2 people this side, 2 people this side, or 1 and 1, and they just go down the street and give out information, and you let this street and then the next street and then the next street, and then you do the next street, and then y'all walk down and meet each other at the bottom and come back up and get in the car and move another one. You don't really have to do but about 2 or 3 hours a week to cover all you need to cover. But then again, your business card's going everywhere. You need to be working your web page. I know you won't listen to me. You're going to say nobody looks at web pages. Really? That's interesting, isn't it? Then why is the internet still there? I don't understand. So, Google is a verb. I'm having family problems. Google, and then your page pops up, you're going to make a difference. And so I want to challenge you to do that. It is 10:02. Chris, before I'll throw some last things in.
Yeah. So here's the deal. When you ask, should we give the same invites out? Absolutely not. But you should have so much money in your printing budget that you've got 7 different invites. It's going to take you, if you were hitting the same place, you'd have 7 different weeks before they get the same invite. Second thing, create special days in your church. So when you have a special invitation, you have a special handout, because we have the day of the child, we have the day of the grandparents, we have the day of whatever you want. Create special days and special reasons for people to come. And so, for example, in the financial world, you sit there and you find an American businessman that has done very, very well. And you go, hey, we've been talking about finances all this time. I actually have invited a special guest who specializes in these things. And he's going to be in and he's going to speak to you about how to have success financially. And we're going to have a dinner after that. So you're bringing your WhatsApp. When Dad said the WhatsApp groups, I'm like, oh, that's key right there. So you take these WhatsApp groups, you use them, and these are feeders, and then you bring somebody in. How to beat alcoholism, and you bring Juan Pacheco in to preach for you, who was as drunk of a drunk as has ever existed. And you have him come in and explain how Jesus was the answer to his. So you're creating special days, special invitations, special things. So because of that, you're not doing the same thing every week. Even if you're passing out to the same houses, it's a different message every week. It's a different thought every week. Print different things, print nice looking stuff. You can't compete with garbage nowadays. So print stuff that looks nice and hand that stuff out.
By the way, I said you can give out the same stuff every week because I don't want you hitting the same blocks. Okay. And so you ought to change on a regular basis. And I'm ready to talk about big days, and we'll try to do that the next time. But listen to what I'm going to say to you. I want you to hit blocks 1 through 5 this week. Then I want you at 6 through 10. Then I want you at 11 through 15, and then 16. So if you do that, even if you gave out the same material, they won't see it again for 2-3 months. But and at the same time, you should always be developing new material. Always be developing new material. Chris is right. You're not giving out the same stuff. But see, you should print up at least 10,000 of track 1 or invitation 1. But you give it here, and that's how you get rid of them. And then you start back over here with track number 2, blah, 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 blah. Track number 3, blah, 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 blah. Track number 4, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually you'll be back to track number 1, because even if you hit the same house, it won't be the same people. Now I have a question that I want to answer real quickly, and then I'm going to talk to you about the days. Would Facebook be an acceptable alternative to a website? And my answer is absolutely not. It is a good thing to have Facebook. I think you want to have Facebook, no doubt. But Facebook's ability to search and promote what you want promoted and is not as easy as a website is. So if you'll go to alignmentministries.com, click on the magnifying glass and just type anger, it'll bring up everything I've written about anger.
Yeah.
And if you'll type bitterness, it'll bring up everything I've written about bitterness. I don't think you do that well in Facebook. Maybe you can, and if you can, I'll admit I'm wrong, but I don't think you can. So why do one or the other? Why not do both? Why not push Facebook? I think you ought to have a private Facebook page and a public Facebook page and a web page. And I'm not against using Instagram. I do kind of dislike TikTok because I hear so much bad stuff. And I was told to get on there by my assistant pastor in my last church. And when I got on there, I had so much porn sent at me, I got off. It took me a week before I got off. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, so Michael Hyatt says, and he's got the book platform. I think that his thing is you have to have a place that you own that they can't change the rules up on you. Okay, so Facebook can be a satellite, but you've got this spot right here belongs to you. And when Facebook is no longer good to use, when Facebook all of a sudden starts cracking down and not using whatever, when that happens, guess what? Facebook goes away, but you've still got this home spot. So you use Facebook and you use whatever other channels there are, you always come back to your homepage. You have to have real estate that you control. It's like the question of can I use Facebook is like saying, is it not valid for me to just live in a hotel the rest of my life? Well, no, it's not yours. You need a place that belongs to you, that you have a contract over that is yours. So have a place in a website. By the way, I looked up while we're online. Liderando Colombia is available. Leading Colombia. Leading Argentina is available. Like there are some great, you don't even have to do the name of your church. You can do something where they go, I mean, these .coms are available. There's a lot of good websites. Create your own space. You control it. Nobody dictates what you do and what you don't do. You can do whatever you want. When Facebook goes crazy or when Facebook becomes the new MySpace, you're still able to send to your homepage. I think that's very, very important. The other thing that I think has not been said is teach people how to refer. When people refer me, most people take a referral of, hey, here's Chris's card. They take Chris's card and they never get around to doing anything with it. So I tell them, I'm like, if you ever have somebody to refer, don't give them my number. What I would like for you to do is do a 3-way text or a 3-way WhatsApp. If you'll send me that way, you know what? People don't understand the urgency. So then I can follow up with them and then so I'm having problems with my family member. Oh, I got this business card. He told me to send a 3-way WhatsApp with you and with him so y'all can start a conversation. You don't want the people being afraid that you're not going to answer. You don't want the people being, oh, he's too big for me, any of that stuff. So make sure that you refer well. So anyway, those are the 2 things that I had written down.
I would tell you, get a YouTube channel and promote it. And I would tell you, get a website and definitely use Facebook and Instagram or whatever you want. I'm not saying not use them, but I am a firm believer in having your own. By the way, on Alignment Ministries, in the little book I'm putting together about our love story, I am at 35,000 words, and that's halfway to a full-blown novel, and I will have 70,000 words or to 100,000 before I probably end up printing in the book. And so, and I'm getting I have several people every week tell me this should go in a book. And so I would just challenge you to get those things going. Now, I wanted to stop and say, every week you're always on visitation, but certain weeks you kill yourself. And so I know I'm a little bit over time, and I realize we don't have a meeting in 2 weeks, by the way, because this month has a longer month. And so it'll be the 1st of October, and maybe, Lord willing, I'll be recovered enough to be with you. But let me just say this to you. See, if you'll set up a 6-week campaign in the spring and in the fall, then what you do now is what visiting you used to do in 2 hours, you put in 10 hours a week. And that's when you hit every house. And you do it every week for 6 weeks and you kill yourself. So week number 1 will be Friend Day. And so you plan special music for Friend Day, gifts for friends who bring friends. Everybody comes, gets a gift. Everybody brings a friend, gets a second gift. You plan that. And so you have Friend Sunday. And so now you've written up something and you're going to preach what the Bible has to say about friendship. And now this week, you're going to give out at least 10,000 invitations. Next week, we're going to do Family Sunday. And we're going to preach on what the Bible said, not necessarily, I'm just making up names here, but I have written these down. But we're going to do Family Sunday. And we'll take a family picture and we're going to have a family meal together at the church. And again, you're going to hit 10,000 homes. You're going to get out 10,000 invitations in 1 week, and you're going to give out prizes to the families. And maybe you could have a drawing and give out 3 special prizes. Something like I just saw a guy in a church I was in going to Argentina, and he talked about all the poverty in Argentina. And so you realize maybe if you gave out a family basket. So you said, I've got a basket here, and it has beans and rice and sugar and flour and some meat, and so one family's going to win there. So then the next week you're going to have Neighbor Sunday, maybe, and you're going to preach on the good neighbor, and that's Jesus. And you're going to talk on the prodigal. You're going to talk on what's his name? The Good Samaritan. You're going to talk about him. We'll have Kids Day, Country Day, Matthew's Banquet, Friend Day. So in other words, I want 6 weeks. And in those 6 weeks, I nearly die because we hit everything. Now, you're coming up on Christmas. You realize Christmas is like one of the most wonderful times in the world? You could plan a Christmas play at your church and get everybody excited about it. They'll all bring all their friends. If you have a Christmas play, they'll all bring all their friends. Then in Peru, I wrote a letter and I bought envelopes of paper, and then we went door to door saying, which they don't get letters in Peru, they didn't in those days. And they said, here's a letter from the pastor of Hunter Baptist Church. And it was a personal invitation to come and honor the birth of the baby Jesus as the Virgin Mary miraculously conceives. I used Catholic sounding terms, and I sent that letter, and then we went door to door, every house. We hit 10,000-15,000 houses, and we did it in 2 weeks, and we flooded the church. Our people dressed up like crazy. I couldn't recognize them. I wrote a play and put it together, and now they got to bring their friends. You ain't gonna believe it. I am one of the wise men, and I got a speaking line, and you need to come. And so if you in other words, you need a good 12 weeks a year where you kill yourself. That's why I only do 6 weeks. So by week 7, you're going to want to shoot yourself. And then you go back to just a couple hours a week. And then later on, you come back to your 6 weeks. So now this is a lot of work, but this is how you do it. Now, let me just, time to quit. Every grocery store uses what are called leader items. I used to work in a grocery store business. You know what a leader is? They will lose money on a liter. If you will come in and buy at least $10 worth of groceries, we'll give you sugar for this price right here, and it's below market price. How many grocery ads, how many store ads? We have the post office box for Alignment Ministries, and I get the junk mail there. And so I was in the post office, and Betty was with me, and I took the junk mail. I was going to throw it away. She said, no, give me those coupons. I'll use those coupons. And so there's coupons. She said, I get them now at the house, and I get them at the post office box. So how come they do all that and you don't do that? Think on that. How come the lost world knows you got to get them in the door? And you are just like, well, if they want to come, they can. Chris?
No, I think that's perfect. I think, guys, just realize when you first start, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so it's a never ending 24/7, always on, always telling people about what you're doing. And then little by little, God's going to send you the people that, it's going to be a good thing, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there.
I got 2 or 3 things more. I'm going to go ahead and take the time because I don't know if Chris may be by himself the next time. I don't know. But I want to say to you, Jerry Falwell called it saturation evangelism. And he said, I am going to saturate the place. So when he started Thomas Road Baptist Church, whether you like him or dislike him, he built one of the biggest churches in America and became an international figure, but definitely a national figure. He fixed it where he went to the city and said, can I paint all the benches where people wait for buses? If I will paint them and maintain them if you'll let me put our ad on it. So every bus, all the bus benches had his picture on it. He had everywhere you turned, you saw Thomas Road Baptist Church, Thomas Road Baptist Church, Thomas Road Baptist Church. It's saturation evangelism. It ought to be that everybody knows about your church. It ought to be that you've given out so much information that everybody knows about your church. If you're not doing that, you're not doing your job. And I think people, you think if you build it, they'll come. That's not a biblical. You might have saw that in a movie, but that's not a biblical premise that we use. Get all their contact info. Anytime you meet somebody, get it set up where you can get their contact info, at least their WhatsApp. So you can be in touch with, hey, can I share WhatsApp information with you so I can be in touch with you later? And then you can put them in and organize you different WhatsApp groups. Have an exciting service. See, I think if you're boring as a preacher, if the music is boring, if everything is up, pop, 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 it ought to be like, man, this is a place to be. Starts on time, finishes on time. This is fun. Let's go do it. Let's have a good time. The messages are good. They're popping and crisp. You will build a church. Okay, last Sunday school. If you want to build a church, you need Sunday school. And then now you got different hooks in the water. We have something for everybody in the family. We got children's ministries. We got teen ministries. We got adult ministries. We have a place for your kid to be in the nursery. And we are busting it to get all this done. So I will just tell you this. You can hit 50 in attendance in a year or less. I did, and I didn't even know what I was doing yet. You're going to say, well, brother, it ain't that easy for us nowadays. Yeah, you don't advertise. And you're not out there in front of the people. And you're just sitting on your backside studying your Bible, and there's nobody to hear what you got to say. So I sum up, get your business card, get your tracts, get your YouTube channel and put out something at least every week or 2 or 3 times a week on subjects that people might need to hear. Get your web page and get it set up and write 300 words every day, 7 days a week. 7 days a week, 300 words. That's 15,000 words, right? 300 words a day times 360, 10 to 12,000 words. And you'll end up doing more than 300 words. If you'll work it, you can build a church. Chris?
109,500 words.
That's a lot of words.
300 times 3. Yeah. Guys, it's realize what you signed up for. When you signed up to become a missionary, we didn't sign up to become a missionary. I think part of the problem lies in the fact that when we start deputation, it is extremely hard work. And then after that, over a little bit of time, at the end of deputation, you're literally just going to churches because you've already gotten booked. And then when you hit the field, you do language school. It's very difficult. So it's this cyclical thing that happens. When you start a church, it is going to be a major draw on your energy, your time, your everything. So just be ready for that, be prepared for that, and work your tail off, because after you get the first one established, hopefully you're training men that are going out and starting the second one. And so you're going to have this continual strain on you for a long, long time.
You know, I mean, that's what we signed up for, isn't it, guys? I'm telling you, you listen to what I'm going to tell you. If you aren't getting out 120,000 pieces of literature a year, I'm embarrassed for you. If you don't have a website in the next month, I'll be embarrassed for you. If you don't get some business cards, I'm going to be embarrassed for you. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But guys, you complain about your church not growing, but you're not paying the price. Please, I love you and I thank God for you. But I know that you can build a church. I know. Hey, within your first 4 years, you ought to be able to start 2 or 3 churches. And they all of them ought to be running at least 50. And you can make any excuse you want to make, but it won't work. Use Facebook ads, use anything you want. Time is short. Let's get with it. Thank y'all for praying for me. Thank you for being with us today. And I'm pretty sure you're mad at me right
And
now.
if you got on late and you want to hear an update on where Dad's at health wise and everything, you can go to the beginning. We actually talked a little bit about that. So.
All right. Well, I love you guys. And thank you, Chris, for helping me. I couldn't do it without you, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Lennon. And God bless you guys. And I will see you